Today you're going to take notes on the distributive property. We're going to look at two ways to distribute, factoring and expanding. Let's first update our table of contents. In our table of contents on page 53, this is where your distributive property notes will go. After your table of contents is updated, turn to page 53 of your math notebook. Remember, page 52 is on the left. Page 53 is here on the right. Here's your essential question for today. How is the distributive property used to write equivalent expressions? Let's start by looking at factoring. Let's look at the expression 3x plus 9y. When we factor, we want to change the expression from a sum to a product of two factors. And that's why it's called factoring. To do this, first, we'll need to find the greatest common factor of these two terms. We can do this using factor rainbows. Here, the greatest common factor of 3x and 9y is 3. The reason for that is, first, what we did was we found factors of 3x. The only numbers that multiplied to make 3 are 1 and 3. And we also have this variable x. The numbers that multiplied to make 9 are 1 and 9, and 3 and 3. And we cannot forget our variable y. Once we have the two lists of factors, we find the greatest one. Here we have 1, 1, and those are common, but it's not the greatest. Here we have 3, and we also have 3 here. And that is why that is the greatest. It's the greatest of the two. Once we find the greatest common factor, we'll factor that greatest common factor. So here's our original expression, 3x plus 9y. We expanded this and have our greatest common factor here, 1 times 3 times x plus 3 times y. We expanded each term. And the greatest common factor, as we saw here, was 3. And so we factored that 3 out. And now we have 3 times the sum of x plus 3y. We got this x from the leftover factors here. And we have 3y from the leftover factors here. We'll show an area model to show why this is true. Now let's get into distributing. Distributing is like the reverse of factoring. Let's say we started off with this factored form, 3 times the sum of x and 3y. To distribute, we distribute that 3 through multiplication. Here, 3 times x gives us 3 times x, and 3 times 3y is 3 times y. We'll write this in standard form by combining all of our factors that we can combine, and we get 3x plus 9y. Here's an area model to show why this is true. If we have the areas 3x and 9y, let's say that's the area here and the area here, then we can also write this area as the sum of x and 3y, that's this entire length, times 3. Remember, the area formula for a rectangle is base times height, or length times width. Here we have length times width. 3 times x gives us 3x. Length times width. 3 times 3y gives us 9y. Or 3 times this entire sum. 3 times the sum of x and 3y. And both of those ways will give us the same area.